Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Angelos, and today I'm joined by the tax wizard himself, Mr. Gordon McCaw of Your Tax Partners. Welcome, Gordon.
Nice to see you, Angelos.
I'm glad you're still with us.
Yeah.
Considering what's going on in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
So today's episode is all about the budget that came out very, very recently, and it's been a very interesting budget. I know from your point of view, budget day is like Christmas Day. Lots of new goodies in the bag there.
Yeah.
So shall we kick off with what's happening in the world of property?
Yeah, can do, and I can lead even before we get in there. I'll tell you about some of the build up to the budget.
Okay,
because,
yeah.
I was really looking forward to it. I really was. It's always a bit of theatre, bit of drama, and it was good fun again. And before any budget, us accountants start to think, what could change? What do we need to do? How do we need to restructure things before we get to the budget? And this year, it wasn't helped by, there was quite a few rumours going around. And they were in the mainstream media. There were things like entrepreneurs relief. This was the big one. Entrepreneurs relief, which is a 10% tax rate, was going to get pulled, was going to get cancelled, which basically means when you sell your business, you'll pay a lot more tax if it does get pulled. So there was a lot of speculation about whether it was going to go or not. And as a result, lots of people were doing deals trying to sell their company before the budget. So we've had a really busy couple of weeks, months, trying to help people get things in order before the budget. It wasn't just entrepreneurs relief. Some people were worried about other things. Some people were worried about stamp duty land tax. We've got some great tax planning where we can help incorporate your business, with your property business, without paying stamp duty land tax. And again, we're thinking, are the government going to stop us from being able to transfer property businesses to limited companies? So there was people thinking, need a restructure before the event. So the anticipation, it was palpable. We were really looking forward to this.
Plus, it's a new government. Boris Johnson wants to put his finger. He wants to perhaps appeal to the northern voters. So maybe make it more of a socialist kind of budget to appeal to both sides of the spectrum, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And they actually even used the word the People's Party at some point, which is really interesting for a Conservative government to talk about the People's Party. It wasn't really the business party. And they were really trying to push home that message, as you say. And a large part of it was allocated to this coronavirus. It was, and they've suggested some quite interesting measures to help businesses through what could be a tricky time. I think he said that at some point potentially 20% of the workforce might be ill, and I do think that's going to have a big impact. We're in the southwest. We're very close to Cornwall, and you think there's a lot of businesses that struggle to get through the winter months because people aren't coming down on holiday. And now they're starting to get excited about April, Easter time, the summer. If we have a reduced number of tourists come into the area, then of course we're going to have a reduced amount of income coming into the area as well. And there could be some real pain for lots of businesses, people in lots of different industries.
So Airbnb, they're feeling it right now. So Airbnb have to refund any cancelled things. And a lot of people from abroad are cancelling at the moment.
Yeah.
Italy, China, obviously.
Yeah.
And like you say, we are quite tourist-based down here, and we rely on that tourism income during the summer months. And it's quite interesting to see what Airbnb is going to do, because if they keep refunding everyone all the time, there's basically not going to be any money for them left. So they could change that refund policy to like credits or vouchers or something like that. So it's having a knock-on effect across every single aspect of our lives. So coronavirus, and I think the government's allocated quite a big chunk for the NHS and supporting services to make sure that the country is going to fight it as best it can, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. And even from that government perspective, they're suggesting here's lots of measures to help deal with the pain. At the same time, they're going to have less income coming in with tax receipts. So you kind of struggle a little bit to think about the maths of some of the changes, who's going to pay for it and when. We haven't got a lot of tax raising measures in this budget, but potentially next year, whenever the virus is settled down a bit, will we then be paying for the pain that that we're going to be going through in the foreseeable future. So watch this space in that respect. In terms of the coronavirus changes, I think there were some good things suggested for small, medium enterprises. Things like your statutory sick pay might be covered. There's conditions and things like that. You might not have to pay the 90 quid plus 2 employees per week rather than them actually getting their salary, which will help a lot if income's not coming through the door. You'll be able to recover some of that from the government. But they didn't actually extend that to bigger businesses. There were some interesting bits in terms of business rates. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute, but with business rates, again, there's some reliefs there for people not applying to the bigger businesses. National minimum wage has been increased again. That applies to big businesses.
So what's this been increased to? Do you remember?
Well, it's gone up by about 6%, so it's gone up, I think it's about £8.72. But key point is big business is going to feel some pain as a result of this budget and as a result of the coronavirus. And the stock market you saw yesterday started to fall just even as the guy was speaking and some of the measures that he was introducing. So on the face of it sounded like a very, very positive budget, but actually I'm not sure how well the markets actually reacted to it. There were some other interesting initiatives to do with coronavirus. He's going to give people more time to pay their tax bills with no interest and no penalties in certain situations. There's going to be some loans that are available if a business is really struggling. And it's good to see that the government's doing at least some things to protect a lot of business from this horrible virus. Yeah.
And like you say, the stock market and how it reacts is quite usually the litmus test about the reality of the situation, because they can kind of see through the smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah.
And they did react negatively yesterday. It wasn't a positive jump compared to say when we finally left Europe, or when the Conservative government was elected, the pound jumped straight back up. This was quite the opposite. So, it could be semi-good news for us now, but like you say, next year, in next year's budget, that's where the penalty is paid.
Could be. Property. I know you love property. I have to say there wasn't a huge amount of change. There are some things that have already been announced that will have an impact on us potentially, but one thing that changed was stamp duty land tax, another increase, this time just for non-residents. They're going to have to pay 2% more per annum when they buy a property. It was not an immediate change. It does not going to apply until 2021. That's quite interesting, I think, with these changes. Some tax changes, they say, straight away, you can't do it anymore, or you'll pay more tax. Others, they give us a bit of a lead-in time. And the skeptic in me thinks that's a business decision. Why don't we encourage lots of people to buy property over the next period of time? And that way we get more tax in the door, which is good.
So that kind of happened in April 2016, didn't it? So when the stamp duty increased from whatever it was with the additional 3% surcharge on top, there was a massive buying spree across the country. And then afterwards there's this quite a vacuum. So 6 months, all that pent-up demand had been satisfied. Yeah. So it did wobble the market slightly, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and I'm a stamp duty land tax expert, so I spend a lot of time giving people advice on stamp duty land tax. More people want to know about ways to reduce their exposure, particularly with this 3% surcharge. There's lots of things you can do. I think some of us hoped that they would get rid of the surcharge. They haven't done that. We haven't even had any noises that they're thinking about doing that. So I think we've got to prepare for the fact it's going to be with us for the foreseeable future. I know some people who delayed actually buying properties because they wanted to wait until the budget had taken place before they committed to it. But I think, that's gone.
There were a lot of rumours. I think it's going to come down. It's potentially going to be reduced by just to stimulate the market again. But we've seen the opposite.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's too big a change at this point for them to do. Who knows? Section 24, Gordon.
Yes, still with us.
So just explain to people at home what is Section 24 and why that's such a thorn in landlords' side.
Yeah, so the government introduced measures a few years ago which are gradually being phased in, which restrict tax relief on interest payments. So whenever we borrow money to buy a property, we can only get up to 20% tax relief if you're a high rate taxpayer on the cost of actually paying the interest on the mortgage. As a result, it made a lot of property businesses less efficient. Some of them weren't even able to continue. And lots of people have had to sell off their properties because they operated at such tight margins. They bought a property, stripped out as much equity as they could, bought another property. Sometimes I'd see situations where people had 30, 40 properties, and really they didn't actually have that much stability in the portfolio. We've still got great low interest rates, but as soon as interest rates start to creep up, as they will do at some point in the future, I'm sure, again, the pain of these changes, these tax changes, are going to be multiplied. Because at this stage, the restriction is based on interest. It's, let's say, a smaller number. When the interest is a bigger number, ouch.
So looking forward then to that, I say exciting times in quotes there, when that pain is really realised, once the full interest relief has been reduced down to 20% and interest rates start creeping up, and they have to eventually, then what are we likely to see? We're likely to see people who are highly geared, not making a profit at all. So then you question, why do I bother having this property?
Or making losses.
Making losses. Releasing it back into the market. Is it necessarily going to be a good thing for a first-time buyer? Potentially, but these properties tend to be bigger properties, maybe run down or specialised in HMO, and then you need a lot of money to convert it back to a residential thing. So it's not black and white there, is it really? And also the councils, the government, the country needs accommodation for these people. If you're a single man in Leeds, I think the waiting time there's for about 10 years on the waiting list. And you always get gazumped by someone who's got a more urgent case than you. So there's a definite need in this country for decent housing. And by putting in this Section 24 tax, it's quite a short-sighted thing, I believe the previous government did.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? And we could have a really lengthy conversation about it. In some way, you can see if the government's objective is to force down the price of houses, ruin some landlords, and have lots of different property available in the marketplace for people to buy, you could see how they might be able to get that objective if they're patient and wait for interest rates to increase. Maybe is that what they want? I'm not sure. Will there be a lot of people who will then not be able to rent property, and that's all they want or can actually do? That's the bigger picture.
And I think that this will come to a head in a few years' time. I believe, when, like you say, the perfect storm will happen. When interest rates start rising again, and we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But there are things that people can do. So if they contact you, there are ways to potentially mitigate against these increases. So get in contact with yourself if you have a decent sized portfolio and you're looking to be strategic with your tax planning.
That's right.
So interest rate dropped again.
Which is good. Which is good for some of us. Unless you're signed up to a fixed rate long term mortgage, then you'd probably be sat there thinking, "Oh, that's annoying," but I wish I could change my mind. But low interest rates are great for business and great for people who borrow money to buy property. And the longer it stays with us, the better, I think.
But obviously, savers not very pleased.
Absolutely right, 100%. And where do you put your money? If you're an investor, or you've got stocks and shares, do you want to put your money in the stock market?
Looking into my crystal ball, look at the figures. They ceased trading a few days ago, didn't they? Because the losses were too high in one day across the US. So that was like a reactive measure. They're below 2008 levels now today. And I feel that they're probably going to go down even more. So is now a good time? Probably just wait a little bit, looking into my crystal ball. But there are other investments, like property, etc., creating your own business. But we live in very uncertain times at the moment.
Good thing about in the budget, they did announce that they were going to review some of the planning regulations with a view to getting more homes built. So I think if you're a property investor, you might speculate about whether you could start to think about development-based opportunities. So that sounded quite interesting. There's a push on affordable housing. Again, the builders that I speak to a lot. Affordable housing, does it get them excited? Not really, because they can't make an awful lot of money out of it. And the reality is, people build houses most of the time because they want to make money, not because they want to make sure that everybody's got a place to live. There were some other interesting measures within the budget. Corporation tax isn't going to change. It's still going to be a 19% tax rate. Again, company's a good place to be if you're potentially trading or even operating a property business. We've got some increases in capital allowances rates for people who buy non-residential buildings. very small and just chipping around the edges. If you're buying a zero emission vehicle, you can get 100% cap allowances in certain circumstances, which is good. So if you're thinking about getting yourself a Tesla or whatever, then that might be a better way to do it if you'd like to get some tax relief than say your new Mercedes. There's some other interesting things. There's a new plastic packaging tax that's going to potentially come in. Not completely sure what that's going to look like or what the implication of that's going to be. But we'll have to wait and see. It's just a headline for now. We'll have to wait for some detail.
Gets Greta Thunberg off their back a little bit, right?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. There's been some measures announced previously that we'd hoped that would be rolled back slightly or maybe watered down. One of those was the reform of what's called IR35. Mm-hmm. So this is where you're operating through a limited company, working for a big business, and currently they pay your limited company and then you pay your own tax through that limited company. Usually you can do that and have a lot more money in hand to be able to then spend on your day-to-day. The government said that it doesn't like that, and previously we saw public bodies being forced to consider the position of people who are trading through limited companies and take a view as to whether they're actually employees, and if so, operate pay-as-you-earn, which meant that the people had less money again in their hands. That's now been widened so that any large companies will now have to go through the same process. And a lot more people who are operating through limited companies, one-man bands, electricians, consultants, advisors, whatever, are going to find themselves paying a lot more tax. What does that mean? It means they've got less money to spend. It also means that they might ask for more money to do what they do. There's going to be quite far-ranging implications, which will affect everyone, I think, as a result of those particular measures. We'd really hoped that they would cancel some of that and roll back some of it, but they haven't done that.
There's been quite a lot of negative publicity about that recently, and I thought the government would have listened to it slightly. Why do you think they're so adverse to that way of doing things?
I think they want people to pay as much tax as they possibly can.
That's a full position, right? Okay.
But there is a balance, isn't there, between people paying too much tax and the right amount of tax. And if people are getting lots of, let's say they're getting favourable tax treatment, but in exchange they're walking away from things like holiday pay, redundancy pay, they've got 0 hours contracts and they can just lose their job straight away. Maybe that's a fair exchange for the flexibility for business. And I think sometimes the government is a bit short-sighted on these things. They make changes sometimes, and they don't think through the implications and how badly it's actually going to affect the business and the people who run those businesses. Yeah. So there was changes like that. There's other changes that are affecting the construction industry as well, more generally. There's going to be some changes regarding VAT and things like that will apply to property developers going forward and builders. So there's some interesting bits that were, we'd hoped they'd look at them and rethink them, but they didn't, and they're still going to be with us.
That's also been removed from ebooks.
From ebooks. The
reason I say that's because of your success book.
Well, you've got a brilliant book.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Gordon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting budget. Lots of potential crowd pleasers, but the devil's in the detail, right?
The devil is in the detail. Yeah. Absolutely. Even I mentioned the entrepreneurs relief and how the 10% tax rate was going to be changed, and so there was a lot of accountants that were rushing to do things. The budget actually contains some measures in there which said, if you do this, if you've done some of these things in anticipation of these changes, you don't get to enjoy the 10% tax rate. So they were actually clever enough to head that off. I'd say that it was interesting, the last chancellors, not Sajid, was he a chancellor? He was for a very brief period of time.
Part-time.
Does he count?
Not really.
before the chancellors before then were talking about let's just have one big financial event a year, have your budget. For a while we were in this, we had a budget and we had an autumn statement as well. And we had lots of changes in both, and it was quite hard to keep up, and things were always moving. So they said, right, to simplify that a little bit, we'll just have one big event a year, which everyone was feeling a bit better about, if I'm absolutely honest, because there's so much to get up to speed with and adapt to, even with this one. He said yesterday, autumn budget, used the words the autumn budget, which suggests to me we'll have another budget in the autumn. Maybe we'll need one, given Brexit, coronavirus, who knows what else. But we have lots more changes. And if we do, what do we need to think about doing now in anticipation of those changes if the government has got a real shortfall in terms of the income that it's receiving or expects to receive in taxes and is having to pay out a huge NHS bill?
Yeah. A lot of spending in this budget, isn't there? A lot of spending.
There is. A lot of spending,
and like you say, let's see what comes around, because it's like a elastic band, right? You pull, lots of great advantages, but then the tail always comes back to whip you.
You got to pay for it, and a lot of spending. You're right, and I love the idea of investing in infrastructure and R&D. Brilliant. Those are really positive things. I love that, and I don't want to get away from that. But at the same time, I kind of think, where does the government go whenever it wants to get more tax in through the door? Landlords, that's one of the favourite ones, isn't it? The horrible landlords.
The greedy landlord. The old stereotype, and yet, ironically, they're providing great service, great accommodation. There's not so good ones, but then there's not so good tenants. There's always good and bad in every industry, and I find that the past, 5, 6, 7 years have not necessarily been too kind for tax and just a general perspective against the whole industry, which I think is a shame, really, because you shouldn't pit one group against another.
No.
There's got to be a middle ground where both sides can work to the betterment of the entire industry. Yeah. But that's for another discussion.
Well, it is. One other thing there was a lot of speculation was actual pension contributions and the tax relief on pension contributions. Before the new changes come in, you could put up 40 grand a year into your pension fund. £40,000, that's quite a lot of money for most people per annum into your pension fund, unless your income went above a certain amount of money. Going forwards, that top level income has increased to a much bigger number. It's up to about £240,000. And over and above that, then there will be a restriction and a tapering in the amount that you can put into the pension fund. It's not very helpful to most people, it really isn't, but the government wants to ensure that people who work in the NHS, doctors and surgeons and people like that, are incentivised to do overtime, and so they've conceded a little bit on that tax relief. You think that the best way that they could raise money, best, not for all but for some, would be to restrict the tax relief on higher rate pensions. They could raise a lot of money doing that. And some people say it's not quite fair that someone earning a bit more money gets 40% tax relief on a pension contribution. Someone earning a lot less, who can't afford to put anywhere near as much into a pension fund, only gets 20% tax relief. I think that will, at some point, that is going to be confronted. And in terms of if this government needs to raise money, that could be one of the things they look at. So I'd suggest, if you're thinking about making large pension contributions, that would be something I'd still be thinking about.
Get it in now.
Yeah.
Gordon, we really should cut this little section out. You're giving ideas to the end. Okay, cool. So anything else that listeners should be aware of before our next greatest budget in the autumn?
I think if you're a landlord, if you've got a property business, think about incorporating. At some point, they're going to stop you from doing it. And that could be stamp duty land tax. We've got a great relief at the minute where you don't have to pay it in the right certain circumstances. If you're incorporating a property business, if they get rid of that and if they cancel that relief, you just will not be able to incorporate. It will be far too expensive to do so. Yeah.
Wise words. Cool. So how can people get hold of you, Gordon?
Well, yes, I'm based in Plymouth. You can send me an email at gmccaw@yourtaxpartners.co.uk or give me a call on 01752 220979. And always happy to chat.
Brilliant. All right, Gordon. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Always appreciate your insights. This is your Christmas day. You're going to have 2 Christmas days potentially this year, so you're a lucky guy. Brilliant. So, yeah, love to hear from anyone at home. What are your thoughts about the budget this year? Please get in contact, hello@yoursuccesspodcast.com. We'll reach out to us on all our social channels. I've been Angelos. Thanks again, Gordon.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And see you again in the next exciting episode of Your Success Podcast.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.